Jimmy McAllister found the net. Goal for Wednesday. Terrific goal by Sheridan.
Chris Waddle, is he going to have a crack?
Oh, he does, and it's goal. Still Glenn Wheeler. Aidan Flint works the Is there time for a winner?
No game to talk about this weekend, but that's not going to stop us. We take on Derby County at Hillsborough tomorrow evening. But on the show tonight, we've got Takeover chats. We've got a potential January signing as well, and comments from a legend to talk about. Hello and welcome to Wednesday Till I Die podcast. I'm James Mappin. Alongside me, as he always is Mr. Matt Johnson, wearing his Wednesday shirt that is black and white. I know we were talking about colours last week, weren't we, Matt? And a bit of white through. Well, it's not white, is it? What is it? Duck egg blue, apparently, that colour is on that shirt, but I don't see it myself.
No, me either. Even if the light is somewhat orange, yeah, it's defo not duck egg blue. Yeah, I'm still convinced it's going to be a Wednesday classic in a couple of years' time. So yeah, until then, the tag will remain firmly in it.
Hardly wore that kit either, as well. Did you ever win in that kit? We probably didn't.
Millwall away, Serrata.
Oh yeah, that one. Oh, that Serrata logo was fantastic. It looked brilliant on the kit. Almost as iconic as Sanderson, some would say. Matt, no football to ruin your weekend this weekend. But what was your weekend ruined by instead, if anything?
Yeah, 2 back-to-back weekends with no Sheffield Wednesday loss feels wonderful, doesn't it? It's just great, James, isn't it? It's amazing. Can we we'll all just take up following something else, really? Not a lot this weekend, to be perfectly honest with you. I get the impression that the next couple of weeks is going to be quite busy, both on Sheffield Wednesday front and everybody's personal lives as well.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you said about taking up another hobby or something. I watched a different kind of sport this afternoon. I went to what they call the Shark Tank to watch Sheffield Sharks against the Caledonian Gladiators. What a name that is! In what was effectively, as I kind of learned after, like the pizza trophy. So like in the cup, and they had a bit of a league. They needed to win by 15 points. So they did win, but they didn't win by the 15. So I kind of, I went to watch hopefully a Sheffield team win something. And I mean, they won the game, but they didn't. It was kind of a mooted celebration, so I didn't even get that either. Can't have out, can you? Really, what I mean? Watch something different just to see if something happens, but didn't even get that. Life of a Wednesday fan. The misery just continues. That stays with you everywhere you go, Matt.
Oh, life of a Wednesday fan. Even the wins are shit.
Yeah, they won, but they didn't even celebrate. We're like, oh yeah, we're not through. All right, cheers, mate. Thanks for that. It was weird though watching it, and I mean, game totally gone if this comes into football, but they had a bit of commentary as the game was going on, as if you were watching it on telly, which helped because it was telling you who the players were and stuff like that. Because I've no idea, absolutely not a clue. Just that tall guy and that other tall guy. One thing that did make me laugh as well is the one player for Sheffield Sharks who on the pitch or on the court looked tiny, and then I looked in the programme, he was 5'11", which I mean it's not exactly. It's not exactly. It's not super tall, but he looked. If you'd have said to me, "We're about 5'4," I'd have probably agreed with you. That's just how he looked. But anyway, he was taller than me, so that just that tells you something, doesn't it? Anyway, this is not the Basketball Till I Die podcast. We are going to be talking about football and Sheffield Wednesday. A reminder to everyone that if you do enjoy the content, look, there's no more basketball coming up, so rest assured. But yeah, if you do enjoy it and you want to kind of get more of it or just help us out or support the podcast, then you can head over to Patreon, patreon.com/WTID pod. That's where you need to go for all of that. So we are going to be jumping over there as soon as we're finished on here, and we're going to be playing Keep, Sell or Release, not Snog, Marry or Avoid, as one Patreon member kind of pointed out. That's on our other channel. Anyway, head over there, 7-day free trial to try it out. The link is in the description. It's also in the comments as well, pinned to the top. Right, I can see there's a few people in here already. John says emergency pod next week, big capital letters there. Maybe that probably would be. Hopefully the last one for quite some time until until I don't know what would the next emergency pod be other than kind of new owners. I don't really know what.
I think we might need
manager
to do one
sacked, maybe.
Well, I was going to say I think we might need to do one when we win a game, James. At this rate, to be perfectly honest with you, just Saturday afternoon, me driving back down the M1, just breaking up constantly. You sat in traffic on the Parkway. Yeah, who knows?
It could be 11 o'clock tomorrow night. You never know.
Oh, please.
Daniel says, evening guys, I wonder what we'll have to talk about. Yeah, not much. Liam, evening fellas. It's been a nice football-free weekend. Got Johnny here, we've got Daniel. Big Dog says, evening boys, up the AI Owls. We'll get onto that in a bit. Big Rev says, great weekend for Wednesday. Blades lose and no game lost by us result. Yeah, I'm not quite taking that as a Sheffield double, though. Maybe a single, though, maybe. Alpha Live says, defo the best shirt. That James got my original one signed by the magician himself. Yeah, self-confessed, not an original. Hence why the button, it's a button and then there's nothing to button it to. So a bit of a design flaw there. I'll be having words with those over the other side of the world on that one. Big Revs, 5'11", the height JM aspires to be, yes. Enough of height chat. Like, please, let's just anyone that has had the pleasure or displeasure of meeting me in person will. Yeah, I am vertically challenged, to say the least. Certainly outside of you, Matt, anyway. So
yeah, I mean, there's downsides to it, James, because my arms look like a scarecrow, so I won't worry about it.
Yeah, we've had that thing before. I mean, it's the the inflatable man outside of a car garage. That's kind of what you look. Whenever Wednesday score, that's what you look like in the away end. So
longest limbs in the EFL. Someone take that title off me.
Not me. Anyway, right, we are going to be talking about, as I said at the top, David Hirst has come out and spoke to Joe Cran from the Star. We've also got some takeover chat. We've also got a bit of transfer chat as well, maybe come the end. David Hirst, Wednesday legend, without a shadow of a doubt. I will take people's word for that because I never got the chance to watch him play. Wish I had, to be honest. But like I said, he has spoken to Joe Cran over the last couple of days and said a few things. He's spoken at length about the George Hirst, that is, obviously. I'll read some of the quotes out, Matt, and I will try and paraphrase because the full interview is over on All Wednesday YouTube channel that Joe does. So if you do want to listen to the full thing, he said George's situation at the club was brought on and brought about by the owner of the football club, no one else. He does go on to say one thing that George or myself or any representative George has ever done is answer what he said had happened. We had no need to answer to lies. Just by the way, when I do this, I have to be careful to remove his name as well from some of these. To be fair, I don't think he actually referred to him by name either in some of the quotes. So yeah, fair play. Maybe he's got that £10 charity donation hanging over his head if he said it as well. He came out and said George wanted 10K a week. The first team players weren't on that. Why would a 17-year-old want that? Whose dad's been at the club? It's just ludicrous. He also goes on to say the situation came about when we were on the way to Forest with the under-18s. As we got off the coach, George was told he couldn't play the game and wasn't allowed to play for Sheffield Wednesday at any level until he signed a new contract. He says, now if that's not bullying someone into doing something, I don't know what is. He then said, we said no. George was still under contract for 12 months. George had no obligation to sign that contract. He chose not to for the simple reason he didn't play football for about 8 months. He says the chairman put it into George's hands. We had no option. There were points we told him, if that's what you need to do, son, you do it. But look at what he's just done, and can he do it again? The answer was yes. The best answer for everyone at the time was for George to move on from the football club. He also, the interview went on, but it ended with him being asked if George would ever come back to Sheffield Wednesday, and he said, I think he's got a little soft spot for Wednesday. He said that himself. He said maybe one day. We don't know how this game pans out. It could be next week. It could be 10 years. You never know if it happened. Matt, a few things here. Firstly, what did you make to what David Hirst has said? I mean, it's going to be interesting, I suppose. This is one of the first times people come out and actually spoken about our previous owner. There could be a few more coming out and saying similar things, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm appreciative that we've got another side to the coin. I would hope that potentially stops some of the nonsensical chants about George Hirst, which have, to be fair to it, I think they're probably tongue-in-cheek. those chants rather than anything else. Again, as you said, I'm a fan who's never met David Hirst. I did have the opportunity to watch him play a couple of times, but it was more towards the end of his Wednesday career rather than kind of like in his peak and in his powers. The first thing that I would have probably been more appreciative of this as a fan had it been 6 to 7 months ago, when there was, there were certain Sheffield Wednesday historical figures talking about the chairman. I personally believe that did have a direct impact on the previous owner leaving, as there were a number of ex-players, manager, who came out and spoke up in kind of like opposition towards the chairman. Time when we needed a few others to do so, they perhaps didn't. Why they didn't, I suppose only they will know the answer to that rather than anybody else. And they're the only ones who can really comment on it. I'm just mentioning it as a fan. Comments are interesting. Again, it just backs up all of the rubbish, doesn't it, James, that we've heard for years and years and years, or suspected about the previous chairman in regards to lies that were told and the way in which that stories were spun and etc. and etc. So yeah, nothing surprises me with the previous owner is the honest answer.
That's the thing, isn't it? Any other club, when things like this come out, it'd be like, whoa, oh my God, I can't believe that's what happened. What a knobhead. Whereas all Wednesday fans reading that, I'd be like, well, yeah. Kind of probably did happen, that, yeah. Like, you could make up some absolute bullshit. I mean, the fact that we've had like African gold being tried to be sold, like that in itself, is just absolutely ludicrous. And now any other story seems pretty tame and pretty normal. Like, you could make up some absolute bullshit story, totally fabricate the whole thing, and worst Wednesday fans would be like, yeah, not his worst thing he's never done.
Correct, yeah.
Correct. I mean, like
that tracks.
yeah, there's probably some truth into that, actually. Yeah. I can see him doing exactly that. But, yeah, I mean, look, and it's funny as well at the time because obviously when all this happened, it was, when was it now? He left Wednesday in 2018, so we were kind of in our heyday there. That was in our dizzy heights. We got to the playoffs once, or then the final ones. Then we got to the playoffs the season after. We all at that point. You hold your hands up. Nobody. If you thought that the previous chairman wasn't the one at that point, then you were probably a very, very minute section of the fan base, to be honest, because we didn't, if we had a crystal ball, then it'd be a lot different. But we didn't know what was coming, on the horizon and stuff. So when that story broke out, it was always like, he's a snake, his dad's a knobhead, he wanted too much money, this, that, and the other. And it's funny how that shifts now, and then we're quite sympathetic, I guess, towards George Hirst and how that situation arose. Now you know what you know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult with George because obviously he was a kid and there was a large number of forwards who were in front of him at Sheffield Wednesday at the time. I remember him playing in what would it have been, the Carabao Cup against Cambridge away for us. But if you go back to that time when he was trying to break into the first team, or you would have liked to have seen him in and around the first team, we're talking Forestieri, Hooper, Fletcher, Atinuiu, Lucas Zhao. That's before you add in the likes of Jordan Rhodes, Sam Winnell, everybody like that.
You mean that time where we signed like 14 strikers, that point?
Yeah, that one. And I do understand that. I just look at George Hirst, and the footballer that he was at youth level has tracked to a degree to the footballer that he is now as an adult. He still has all of the raw talent and ability that he did. I know he's older than everybody seems to think. Like, he's 26, isn't he, James? And that's kind of like, I still think of him as quite a young forward trying to make his way. And I know he's had injuries, and I know when he moved.
If you told me you were 21, I'd be like, I'd probably agree with you.
Yeah, you agreed. I know when he went and made the move to Belgium, to Leicester, to then his loan moves, that was probably a year or so later than you would have think. So he was almost like a year behind in his development. I know he had a big injury, obviously, as well. He's had some big injuries, at Ipswich. Whenever I've watched him, I've been very impressed with him as a footballer, in terms of he has raw pace for a lad who is tall. He doesn't mind the physical side of the game, which to me is unusual now for a young-ish forward, or a modern forward especially, of his ilk, because he's not built, is he? He's not like a stacked unit and a frame. He's quite a or he looks it anyway against grizzled centre-halves. He looks a bit of a slender lad, but he actually quite likes the physical contact of things. And he finishes, but for me, best of all, is he's got a nasty streak to him. And I really like that. I really like the fact that he has got a really horrible side to him. Like, I think it was opening game of the season when Birmingham played... Birmingham played Ipswich and he scored a penalty late on, and he went and give it them absolute mountains in front of I think it was in front of the Tilton, and they were going absolutely ballistic about it. And he's always, every time I've seen him, he's had that. He did it at Hillsborough when he scored for Portsmouth in that 4-1 game just before the playoffs. He scored early on, 5 minutes, and I remember turning around to Andy, who was sat next to me, and saying, I'm glad we've got that out of the way. Now we can actually, get a game of football going here. But I remember him running off to the cop and staring everybody down. And I like me personally, it's why I was a fan of Josh Windass. I really like that when a player has the arrogance to do that. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I think that was the only time he scored against us. I'm just looking now. He played against us 5 times. I think he's only played against Coventry. I think he's the only one that he's played against more than us. But yeah, we've only beat him once, and that was obviously that game that you mentioned about, that game that he scored in. I've started a few comments from earlier. Steve says emergency pod. Shalabar plays 90 minutes.
Won't happen.
John wants an emergency pod for a football match actually breaking out. Owl for Life says it's the same on the original, nothing to button to, in reference to the shirt that I'm wearing. So I've never owned the original, so I wouldn't know. Nat says, Binnies, there's no football to talk about. Can we talk about the darts? Certainly not, Nat. Jimmy says he'd love George Hirst back. Craig, I remember the story that young Hirsty was wanting 10 grand a week. I said it were bollocks at the time. Steve says if his second name wasn't Hirst, no one would have actually be bothered. Only reason he went to Belgium was a loophole to get to Leicester. Yep. And then SB says he's got a bit of shithousery about it. Yeah, something that our team certainly lacks. Matt, just that one there. Jimmy says love George Hirst back. Would you take him back at Wednesday? I mean, I can't see it happening until we at least get back to the Championship, unless his form falls off an absolute cliff.
Unless he goes all Ugbo on us.
Well, on Ipswich, I guess. Yeah. Could you see that potentially happening? Because I mean, I suppose that if we're talking about getting back to the Championship, it's at least 2 seasons. He's going to be 28 there. Maybe 3 seasons. He'll be 29. Would you see that happening? And would you have him back?
I'd have him back yesterday, James, because of all of the things that we were talking about, where I think his physical attributes, his eye for goal, and also his attitude when he's on a football pitch. I think we need more of that within our side. He's a heck of a player at this level, is my opinion. I don't know whether he's cut out for Prem football, and I think we didn't really get the opportunity to do so. And also there's this thing called a Liam Delap that happened to be at Ipswich last year as well, who is effectively a younger, quicker, bigger version of him. I would love him back, but again, as you say, by the time that rolls round, you've got no idea what kind of a footballer you're going to be getting, because, historically 28 was a footballer's prime. Footballer's prime is much younger now. You'd argue it's 23 to 26 maybe, and it's a young man's game now. I'm not entirely sure whether anything would be right, but would I like him back to play, for argument's sake, the Michael Smith role that we had last year, later on in his career, where you want him to come on and effectively what Kiefer Moore is now for Wrexham, bring him on, or I know he starts a lot of games for Wrexham, but you can bring him on with 20, 25 minutes to go, and you're not weakening your team by making a substitution, which is a novel idea to Sheffield Wednesday at this minute.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, to be fair, at the moment, beggars can't be choosers, can we? I read somewhere we've got something like 12 professional players for tomorrow in the ranks, given that Jan Valerie's now gone to AFCON. It might be 13, actually, because I think that was actually... thinking that Sean Fazer was also going to be off, although would he class as a professional? He's still under 21, isn't he, really? Anyway, point I'm trying to make, I'd have David Hirst back tomorrow if he's, you know what I mean? let alone George Hirst. Like that's the situation that we find ourselves in at the moment. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think there's that fairy tale element of kind of coming back after previous chairman fucked him off. So there's that side of things, which is always nice as a fan. I think he would. He'd certainly benefit us. I'm certainly not going to. If we announced, next season or the season after or whenever, Wednesday we've signed George Hirst, I'm not really going to turn my nose up at it.
No,
it's,
no.
Do you know what I mean? It's not like, no, I'm not going to go, fucking hell, what we signed that pile of shit for, like we did with Ashley Fletcher, who incidentally is he's got like 6 in 6 or something for Blackpool. He's on. I didn't think he even knew where the back of the net was.
Wait, that'll be EK Ugbo next year if he's still here. You just wait, James.
Mate, I've been waiting for. What is it? What are we on now? About 500 days or something since.
Yeah, we're on a long time, but he's just warming up. That's it. He's just getting himself comfy.
No, that Joe, we've already banned one person's name. We might have to ban another person's name from the podcast as well. Anyway, right. Let's get on to some takeover chat then. I think we talked about this last week. We must have done, but. We'll talk about it again. It is the talk of the town at the moment. Everyone's but it's kind of gone a bit quiet. But then all of a sudden, it's all bubbled up to the surface again. We were told a few weeks ago that there were 12 interested parties that had put up the £50 million proof of funds. Now, of those 12, there was 2 names that had been put out there by the media, by the journalists that we've already spoken about. Earlier today as well, we learned about a 3rd interested party. So but let's talk about them as well. We can't talk about the other 9 or 10 or however many it is because we quite frankly don't know who they are. But these ones we certainly do. Mike Ashley is one of them. The other name or names are John McAvoy and the Storch family. Apparently they're looking to join forces and looking to buy the club that way. The final name that came out today is that of James Board, not James Bond, who kind of when I first read it, I thought that's what it said. Although I bet he's kind of heard that strap line a few times, maybe. Probably gets a bit bored of that.
I was going to say that probably will drive you to becoming a millionaire, just so that you get up into that rarefied atmosphere where you're not stood in a boozer.
Maybe
someone just goes, her name's Board, is it? Like James Bond? And he's going, fuck this.
Maybe he actually got £1 for every time someone said it. Like when people
correct.
Maybe that actually happened, and then that's how he's a millionaire. But no, he's a professional poker player or former poker player. So I suppose he does like a gamble. So pretty apt maybe with the situation that we find ourselves in. We'll talk about all 3 of them. First of all, let's talk about the Americans that we know that are interested. First of all, did you know anything about them or heard about the names or anything like that? Because I must admit, I didn't have a clue who John McAvoy and the Storch family were. I did think he was the tennis player at first, but I realised that's John McEnroe. But
jeez, that's bad, isn't it? That is bad. No way, it's not him. You cannot be serious. It's not him.
It's not him. No. But did you know about any of these before? Were they on your radar at all?
The only one that I'd heard of before was John McAvoy, and that I think is only from the proximity of living relatively close to Coventry in terms of his name being bandied about when I think it was 2022, wasn't it, or somewhere around there, where he was rumoured to be interested in purchasing the football club, but the deal was way too complicated with the previous owner there in Sisu and the stadium holdings, and it was around the same time that people were trying to still revive kind of the effectively who used to be London Wasps in terms of the rugby club as well. It was all it's a mess, and then obviously he disappeared, and then since then heard exactly who he is and a little bit more about who he is through the connections that people have made, because I think it is John McClure is signed to his record label or they're friends or something.
Yeah, there's a bit about that. He's a billionaire entrepreneur. He owns a minority shareholder stake in the NHL team, the Nashville Predators, and MLB side, that's Major League Baseball for those that didn't know. Colorado Rockies also owns the record label, as you mentioned, called Various Artists Management. That sounds like an AI name if if ever you'd seen one, like
that is just sheer laziness. Various artists management. I
have
a lot of time for that.
Can you give me one name for a record label for various artists?
That is brilliant. That I like that.
One of his clients is the John McClure of Reverend of the Makers, obviously a big Sheffield Wednesday fan. The Storch family, on the other hand, I'm not sure how many of them or which ones, but apparently they were looking to buy Plymouth with Gareth Bale back in the summer that never materialised. I think if you look into it on their Wikipedia page, which of course everything on Wikipedia is gospel, I think one of them made their money in the toy giant Toys R Us, which I feel like I've got shares in. Well, it's not Toys R Us anymore, is it? It's
Smiths.
Smiths is the kind of one that's taken. I have got shares in them over the past couple of weeks with that, that whole thing called Christmas coming up and having two kids of 5 and 8. I mean,
see anyway. You coming, don't they? Mr. Mappin, come on through, VIP. It's like that scene in Home Alone where there's a limo outside the hotel.
Yeah.
It's exactly that for you outside your house. Just a Smith's worker in a van.
I went there this morning and they rolled out the red carpet as I walked in, so that was nice of them.
Funny.
That's who I think they are. I mean, like, for me, the bit about the link with Sheffield through Reverend and the Makers is something I quite like. And the fact that also, John McAvoy is in the sports game, he's not just a total novice when it comes to all this. He's actually, got to, I know ice hockey and baseball are totally different to football, and obviously in a totally different country, which makes a bit of a difference. But for me, on the outset, that looks... I'm okay with all that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface of it, I agree with you, James. This bid sort of ticks all of the boxes of, like, if you were, if you were lining up what we were discussing, 6 months ago, the Sheffield Wednesday fans, this kind of bid does seem to line up with all of those boxes, American, multiple ownership in terms of it's not just one person say so. There's a variety of different investors into it. They have a previous track record of owning sports teams. It is important to note that both the Rockies and I will say the Nashville Predators, because I can't just say the Predators because that is going to open it up to all sorts of different connotations. They're two of the worst teams in their respective sports this year.
I can't say I've looked, to be fair.
No, I mean, again, just a reminder, American sport is cyclical in terms of, rather than English sport, in the sense that, like, there are drafts and player trades rather than transfers. So it doesn't necessarily equate to you've got the most money, you're great. Anybody who's an NFL fan will attest to, if they're a Dallas Cowboys fan because they grew up in the 80s, will attest to that franchise is hot garbage year on year on year. But yeah, the rumoured bid for Coventry was because there were no proof of funds that were shown. But obviously, I think revisionist history has kind of shown that actually the deal was too complicated, so they never bothered showing proof of funds. That, to me, does suggest that the money is perhaps coming from elsewhere and that these two are the face of it, if that makes sense, rather than necessarily it being out of their own pockets, which, again, on paper, I don't mind. I have no problem with at all. I think that's the smart way to run a club, is you actually seek investment into a football club rather than having one or two very wealthy people who just bankroll the entire thing. That is, I know people seem to perceive that's what's happened at Wrexham. That's what happened at Wrexham in the early stages, but then they very quickly sought external investment. And as you can see now, they're in the Championship. They're just selling off large portions of the football club, which is fine. I think for more on anybody who would like more on, in particular the Rockies, speak to Matt Thomas. He's your baseball man. He will tell you exactly more about that franchise. When I had a quick conversation with him earlier, Matt said it's really baffling because the Rockies are so well supported and consistently shit. And I was like, oh my God, this is a match made in heaven.
This look, I've just been looking as you've been saying, and you are right. The Predators are bottom of their the Central Division, and then I was looking for the Rockies. And how many games of baseball do they play in a season? By the way, they've lost 119 games this year in the 2025 season, and they've won 43. I'm like, do they play like every day?
Yes. Yeah, they do, James. So baseball runs in because obviously I think it works where, again, I could be wrong. You need to see Matt Thomas, but I haven't paid any attention to baseball for a long, long time, aside from like dipping in and out. It works of like they'll play a stretch of games because obviously if you're traveling from, say, Colorado to, I don't know, Miami to play the Marlins, it's a long old way. So they'll play a stretch of 4 games back to back, and it runs over the week as well. So like Tuesday lunch, there's a game.
I mean, to be fair, all you do is you swing a bat, and then you've got to run to the first base, haven't you? Really, you're not exactly got.
You've got to chew some chewing tobacco and spit on the floor every 30 seconds
and stand on a hill to throw a ball. Anyway,
Matt's gonna be losing his fucking mind at this shit. You don't understand it.
And you know what I love as well? I've seen some podcasts or whatever where they're watching a sport or they have no idea about, and then they're just trying to talk about it, and like, yeah. I get it. I'm sure there's more into it than that, but anyway, like I mean, would you, if it gets announced tomorrow that they're the preferred bidders and things, you know, I mean, I know we haven't even spoke about the other two, which we will in a second, but would you be okay with that?
The only thing that I would be concerned is one of those two. So not John McAvoy in terms of with the Storch side of this deal. I'm assuming we're dealing with Gerald, not who my reference to for Storch name is Scott Storch, who's a very famous hip hop producer. He spends a lot of his time now on American media, CNBC, Fox, etc., discussing retail and consumer news. My concern with that side of it would be they've been minority investors, or McAvoy's been a minority investor in sports teams. It's very different being a minority investor to being the head honcho, and all of the decisions are on you, if that makes sense. And I'm not suggesting that he wouldn't get it right, because actually he's seen exactly what not to do with those 2 other franchises, which is good if you learn the lessons. But I would just be the other thing is I would be concerned. I would want to know, not concerned. I would want to know where the additional investment is planning to come from, and them to just be, as we've been asking for, James, a bit more transparent about the whole thing. I'm not asking for like miracles. I'm asking for them to be more transparent about things. So on the surface of it, that bid ticks a lot of boxes for myself personally. I'd like to, if they got in, I'd like to see how that played out and how deep the pockets actually are in terms of investment.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned about Toys R Us and things. If they did come in, my God, at least the Megast would look good anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
He's also, I'm just looking now, this is, Gerald Storch. He's a member of the board of directors of Bristol Myers Squibb, no idea what that is, and Fanatics, who are the leader and retailer of officially licensed sports merchandise as well. So if you're into the trading cards and things like that, Fanatics are massive when it comes to that. I think they're big in Formula One as well. When you're buying if you want all the t-shirts,
NFL, MLB, they are the official stockist for all American sports teams.
Yeah, big. I mean, he's only on the board, but again, when he massively ticks that box of commercially, we are, the people that work in that department do a lot of great work. But again, like many departments at Sheffield Wednesday, they either don't exist or they've got the hands tied behind the back well and truly. Yeah. If anything, from a commercial aspect, you'd like to think that we would be certainly better than what we are at the moment anyway. And if we're not, that is a massive L in my book. So
yeah, agreed. And that I know this isn't what people want to hear, but actually fixing that side of the club is so crucially important. So
where'd you get your money from? Where'd you get your money?
that woman leaning through the window. Where'd you get your money from?
but when we're talking about, when we get to January or the summer, and we're saying, we need a 20 goal a season striker, we need a fast winger, we need all these people. Unless they're coming through your youth setup, where'd you get them from? Well, you have to spend some money. Where'd you get your money from? Like, you've got to get the money from somewhere, and it's got to come from everywhere. Selling players, selling young talent. Well, why not just sell more stuff in the club shop?
Correct.
This period now, I know they've brought out some kind of retro stuff as well, which great, fantastic. Like previously, I'd go in the club shop, and other than this shirt, all the other stuff was utter dog shit. Like, it was terrible. It was terrible quality, and it was massively overpriced as well. Like, you know, all right, some of the training stuff was all right. I didn't really like the SWFC, like, iron printed on the back of it, on the back of it, and like get rid of all that. Like, but you know, all the leisure wear, it's just like a polo shirt with a badge stitched on it. It's just like fruit of the loom polo shirt.
Agreed. Yeah.
Like 45 quid, yeah.
45 quid because it's got Wednesday on it.
And you're sweating your bollocks off when you're wearing it as well.
I agree, James. And that's where, as much as it pains me to say, sides like Leeds, and this one doesn't pain me to say at all, sides like Arsenal have got their commercial side of things really right. If you look at Arsenal bring out mountains of kits every single year, but they are in tune with the fan base, and they are in tune with the wider Premier League culture and the fan base that's there, and they design kits based off that. Ajax do something very similar as well, and they properly steer into the fact that, you know, we're in the centre of Amsterdam, woo, and they really steer into all of that side of things. I would like people to come in, and as we were talking about there, with that commercial and that you know, actual business acumen, to be able to go, well, hang on, if an administrative team, and this is no disrespect to the administrative team, if an administrative team who are corporate and financial lawyers, if they can do that over the space of 2 weeks, and that kit's fucking appalling, like, surely, if Sheffield Wednesday for once had Nike or Adidas as a kit maker and did all of the training kit and all of those shit polo shirts, and they just had an Adidas logo on and a slightly better detailing, Brian, you make a fortune.
Yeah, tell me about it. People will spend the money, and we've seen that over that weekend where people just flocked to the shop, queuing up to buy the stuff that they didn't want to buy before, and they couldn't help themselves but just spend money. And yeah, it's such an easy win, and yeah, I think the other thing as well is, I'd like the new owners for us to actually kind of know where the money comes from as well. I think that just adds a bit of financial security. We thought we knew where the money came from before, and we got burnt by that because it, you know, it didn't. Maybe it did initially, but then it certainly didn't after. Whereas someone who's got a bit of a track record, or you can go, oh yeah, that's no, because the issue at the end previously was, where is his money? Like, literally, we have no idea where it's coming from. And it took people in the trust to actually dig into all these businesses that we didn't even have been there 10 years and didn't even tell us any of these. What was one of them? Diamond farming or something ridiculous.
And the other point that you've made there, James, is not only where his money's coming from, but where is the money going? Because that's the other question that we never, as Sheffield Wednesday fans, I suppose, we didn't ever try to seek the answer to that. Actually, we were so fixated on where's the money coming from, where's it coming from. Well, where's it going? Yeah. Because actually, you can see that a lot of the money, especially as the facts and figures that the trust proved, the last 8 years of the previous owner's reign, fan expenditure outstripped the chairman's. So where did that money go? And, you know, the previous chairman spoke several times about the fact that it's operating at a £9 million loss. Well, inside of 4 weeks, an administrative team has said, well, we actually stand currently, if everything ticks along at the same rate that it is going, we're actually standing to make £1 million profit. So it's again, and that goes back to, I think, with the nature of the fact of, let's say it is Gerald Storch who's involved in this as well. They're so public-facing, both of these two individuals. They can't just run off and hide. And they are going to be forced to be held accountable, let's say. Yeah,
and I suppose they maybe have got a reputation to uphold as well.
Agreed.
Whereas previously, nobody knew who we were, so it doesn't really matter. The family may be in certain circles, but yeah, I mean, I didn't know about these, but clearly quite a lot of people do, so... Yeah, you're right. We're not going to run into the same problems that we had previously. Let's talk about this one then. It's the controversial name, which I know you have got.
Strap in.
Yeah, we did a deep dive on Bailey Cadamartri last week. Bailey, you got off lightly. Is all I'm going to say.
Shall I go get the padlock? Give me 2 seconds.
Go and move into get into conservatory, Matt. You're like.
Fat like in a clothes rack.
Yeah, I made the mistake of telling you about this yesterday, as opposed to normally you're kind of looking on a Sunday afternoon. But since we didn't have a game to play, you had a bit of extra time. But yeah, I mean, this name isn't going away. I've been kind of checking the temperature on this, and I can honestly say, I think, like, outwardly, I think people are saying that they don't want this. This being Mike Ashley, of course. If you couldn't join the dots together, I think everyone would agree that it's not first choice. But I think most people would actually probably say that Mike Ashley owning Sheffield Wednesday, like, kind of isn't the worst idea of it all. And I think also when when you kind of look at what you want from an owner, I do think he ticks some boxes. I mean, before I let you have your say, kind of, and before I kind of talk a little bit as well, people listening, watching, get in the comments. Would you? Firstly, what do you think to Mike Ashley owning Sheffield Wednesday? Would you be okay with it? And secondly, why as well? Do let us know. We'll read some of them out a little bit later on. Because for me, like, when you look at the tick box exercise, experience, he's owned Newcastle, arguably one of the biggest football clubs in the country. So he's got that experience there. I feel like he's successful in business. All right, question marks over how he's achieved that success and his methods and things like that. But Sports Direct seems to be doing okay. And he sold them for a tidy amount. I mean, the other one, which I suppose is a little bit controversial for some, is that I think because he's a businessman, he probably wants to turn a profit on Sheffield Wednesday. And for me, if he wants to flip the club, in order to do that, Sheffield Wednesday have to be better than what they were when he bought us. So if he does that and he does want to get rid of us, and we are, I don't know, pushing for the Premier League or whatever it may be, that's certainly a lot better than staring League One in the face, which is what we're going to be, which is what we do. Well, I say we stare it in the face. We are League One, basically. Yeah. I mean, I do want to kind of caveat all this by saying it isn't my number one choice. Like, if you just said, who do you want as owner of Sheffield Wednesday, I'm not going to, Mike Ashley, I want him, he's the best man for the job. Like, I don't think anyone has said that, really, other than I don't know, has he got any kids? I have no idea.
I don't think from how he lives his life away from his business, I'm not sure his kids would.
I don't think even them would have said it, to be honest. But also, like, the bar isn't set very high at all in terms of, in order to be successful from the fans' perspective, as the next owner of Sheffield Wednesday, you don't have to do much. Christ, we were just saying, just have a Nike kit. Like, literally, that's all. For some people, like, oh my God, he's put. I mean, someone mentioned it earlier. What did he say? I can't find it. He said Nike kit with the old badge. Imagine. Like, do you know what I mean? That's how deprived we've been as a fan base, that we will just have absolute kittens over a football shirt that will probably be massively overpriced as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be such a bad decision, an option. Probably because of how bad it's been before. I know you've got your own thoughts on Mr. Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, again, James, I'm perfectly willing to listen to all of that. And to be fair, mate, like, some of that I can understand in terms of there's no denying that he is a successful businessman. There's no denying that whatsoever. Like, what he has done with Sports Direct, what he has done with the Frasers Group as well, is genuinely to be applauded in terms of modern business. He is a self-made man done good. Like, there's no two ways about it. Cunning, opportunistic, and ruthless is how I would describe him, and I've been consistent on it from the start, and I still will be. When the previous chairman was here, I described it as he is the devil that you dance with if you could have got the previous owner to sell. Now, with the previous owner out of the way and that difficulty out of the way, no thank you. Again, he's often used as like a cutthroat businessman. By that I mean he would cut your throat if he thought it was going to benefit him and his business interests.
For me, man, I just think he's probably the only one that touches us. No, like, we are not an the only attractive proposition we have is that P word, which is potential. Like, we have potential.
Yeah.
But I mean, a derelict building has potential, but when you get in there, it all falls down like that. It's got no potential anymore. Like, it's like, do you know what I mean? I think we are probably a lot worse than what we maybe think, I guess. And I think he's probably the only one that has the cojones, or maybe to actually think, no, I could probably do something here, if you know what I mean.
Okay, 3 football clubs, Newcastle, Rangers and Coventry, all 3 leave more questions than answers, 2 of which had mass fan protest against his involvement. And if you, again, Newcastle is the one that people often refer to, and if people want to do the digging on Newcastle, it's really easy to do so. There are mountains of information out there, both balanced and well thought out.
Yeah, you sent me a podcast, didn't you, on that as well?
There's balanced and well thought out ones with humour. There's 10-minute ones. You can find 40 minutes. You can find 2-hour deep dives. There is so much out there because of Mike Ashley's reign at Newcastle and how fan perception was, to how certain members of the football media in this country perceived him, etc., etc. I'm going to talk about Rangers and why fans branded Mike Ashley and his regime as scum, parasites and rats. And this is important. The reason why I'm focusing on Rangers rather than Newcastle is because Mike Ashley wasn't the main man at Rangers. He was the owner of Newcastle at the time of his involvement with Rangers. Now, apologies to everybody. You are going to have to stay with me through this.
Big Rev says, fasten those seatbelts, buckle up.
I'm so sorry. But it's... So, very similar to Sheffield Wednesday, the problems at Rangers when Mike Ashley went in ran much deeper than like the present and now. You would argue that Sheffield Wednesday has been a mess since the mid-90s, realistically, off the pitch, and it's had tiny little glimpses of sunlight type of thing that have shone through, and then that's quickly been extinguished. So, go back to 1988. Revisionist history, David Murray, who bought Rangers at the time, he bought it for £6 million. He borrowed that money and then he racked up £30 million worth of debts towards Lloyds Bank, which led to a sale in 2011 for £1 to Craig White, who then placed the club into administration, over £9 million paid in unpaid tax bills. All of that sounds very eerily familiar to what's gone on here over the last 26 years. Mike, up to that point, as a cutthroat businessman, had very, very quietly purchased 5.2% of Rangers. He'd acquired it through a holding company called Mash Holdings. And he also acquired the naming rights to Ibrox. Now, I know lots of people have joked about, I don't care if there's a sponsor in front of Hillsborough's name, it's still going to be Hillsborough to me. But again, when you're talking about Newcastle and Rangers, you are talking about two sets of fans who Sheffield Wednesday fans should be able to relate to in terms of seeing themselves in terms of a club of some sort of stature. Number of examples. The one that I'm going to highlight is Rangers Retail Limited, because that, to me, highlights his true nature and character. This effectively turned over, because we've just been talking about the commercial side, James, this effectively turned over the commercial side of the football club and the running of it. So in a press release about the deal at the time, the statement read, "It once again enables the club to control its retail operations, allowing supporters to buy direct from the club," because previously they had been in a deal with JJB, which then collapsed. The deal actually, however, skewed the flow of cash not to the football club, but to Mike Ashley and Sports Direct. Mike described those contracts as the most lucrative of his career, which gives you an indication of just how much money he's about to make. In 2012, Mike then ups his stake to 8.9%, making him the third largest shareholder at Ibrox. The FSA blocked him wanting to purchase more because he was in charge of Newcastle, and they argued that it was a conflict of interest. At the time, Rangers were in the Scottish Championship, not the top division. They were on their way back after all of the administrations and relegations. Yeah. But what he did once that deal was blocked was he couldn't exert any real power on the surface, but what he did is he lent them £2 million to keep the lights on, and then filled the board at Rangers with friends of his, so he had control. He received, as part of the deal, prime land around the ground that had previously been club controlled. So imagine car park outside the Megast, car park at the training ground, other bits and pieces of land that the club will own. He was allowed to do this because of 2 board members. So he ousted 2 other board members and actually put in Easdale and Somers, who did everything they could to keep him or get him further embedded in the club. There's a gentleman who he then brought up from Newcastle, in Derek Lambius, who was a casino owner before his role as CEO at Newcastle United Football Club. He was a London casino owner and then got put in as CEO at Newcastle. Then he got whipped out of there and installed as CEO at Rangers. And also Barry Leach, who was a sports directive executive, and he was appointed as the finance director of the football club. Ashley then decides to give them another £1 million as Rangers supporters decided they want absolutely nothing to do with the way the football club's been run. So season tickets were down, club revenue in turnover was down, much like it has been at Sheffield Wednesday this year. So he decided to pump in another £1 million. Mike then says, well, that's not going to quite work. I'm going to offer £10 million as a loan to the football club. That £10 million is going to be done in 2 5 million like waves of money. I'm going to give you 5 million up front, and then there's a further 5 million which I'm going to hold over here, and the football club can draw on it when it needs. So I'll put some good faith in here. I will hand back the naming rights of Ibrox, because supporters were absolutely apoplectic about it, much like Newcastle fans were with St James's Park. In return, he receives 25% of all advertising rights at Ibrox. And remember how many people watch Rangers.
Yeah,
that is prime real estate. Like prime, that is worth more than £10 million. And he got it for an absolute song. Rangers obviously were still shit. Like on and off the pitch, they were still a mess. There's, for anybody who is wanting to do a bit more of a deep dive, go and have a look at the Toon 5. 5 reserve team players who were forced to be played by Rangers if fit, and if they weren't played, Rangers had to pay Newcastle, that means Mike Ashley, £2 million if they weren't played when fit.
Matt, I think after this deep dive, I think some people might be Rangers fans, actually.
Yeah, sorry. Mike eventually obviously was ousted. This was like fan upheaval, and there was a couple of three wealthy Rangers fans who called the Three Bears, who basically decided we need to get this club out of his hands because it's going like a mess, absolute mess. And you know when people always say, Michael always just leave clubs quietly? Yeah, no, that's not what he did at Rangers.
Because that's what I'm kind of hoping for, really. You know, when I talk about turn a profit and then go sellers, as long as it's painless, or not as painful as what this has been. For me, I'm okay with that. Move on and someone else comes in. But if you're saying that it's not like that.
Well, I agree with you, James. If it was just as simple as just sell the football club and I'll just move on, dust my hands of it, doff my cap and say, thank you very much, all, I'll see you later. Yeah, Mike didn't do that. So the deal, remember that commercial deal that I spoke about, Rangers Retail Limited, that gave the club total control of everything to do with its retail sector, and it allowed fans to buy directly from the football club and subsequently the club benefit, much like what happens at Sheffield Wednesday now. When Mike Ashley was ousted from there, he went to High Court to stop the information about that deal ever becoming public and public knowledge. So supporters immediately, and the new board completely smelt a rat about it. Obviously the new board know what was going on, but there's this thing called public records. The end of the financial year, 2013, Rangers' turnover had quadrupled from 1.2 million to 4.8 million. This was because obviously Rangers gear went into Sports Direct stores. And it was en masse, and it was marketed, and it was pushed, and it was everywhere. You'd think with that quadrupling and the fact that the club are now in control of that Rangers would see a massive profit. But Rangers didn't see a massive profit. Rangers only saw 877,000 of that. Because every piece of Rangers merchandise that was sold, shirts, tracksuit bottoms, polo shirts, the shit mugs that you were talking about earlier, the shit Fruit of the Loom things that have like Rangers printed on the back, fridge magnets, bought from Sports Direct amounted to 3.8 million. That 3.8 million was immediately turned over to Sports Direct and Mike Ashley. It wasn't turned over to the football club. And if you would like me to break that down even further, for every £1 that was spent on Rangers gear, 7 pence of it went to the club. The rest of it went into Big Mike's Sports Direct. And if you think that sounds bad, hold on. Because let's deal with the club shop, the Megast, Rangers Megast. After the gagging order ran out, in the 4 years that it had been operating under this deal, for every £10 that was spent in the club shop, your hard-earned money that you want to give to the football club to survive, much like we all did in October and November, 40p of that £10 went to the club. I'll leave you to guess who benefited from it. Let's put it that way, James. But his first name begins with an M and his surname begins with Ashley. And this is where I sit. He's cunning, opportunistic and ruthless. And if 3 fan bases are telling you you don't want him near your football club, guess what? You don't want him near your football club. Because the way in which that he screwed over Newcastle, again, do the digging. The way he screwed over Rangers from a financial perspective, the way he shelved legends at Newcastle, the mess that he's caused for me down the road at Coventry in terms of, inflating a stadium deal and all the rest of it and hamstringing them for basically 2 years while they save to buy their stadium back. If it benefits Mike Ashley, he will do it. It's not about the football club. It's will it benefit him? And my concern is that there is nobody at Sheffield Wednesday in any position of even remote power to stop him. Can you imagine letting this loose for 8 from just that small deal that I've mentioned there? Can you imagine that at 18 months unchecked at every single level of the football club? When we were talking about that get in, get out type of thing, it wouldn't be. You're feeling the effects of this, like Rangers have been up until very recently.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will be thankful of that deep dive, Matt, that you've just done, and
sorry,
and things. no, it's good. It's good information for people like myself who just purely looking at it on the surface level and going, oh yeah, he'll be all right. I mean, I'm going to come to some of the comments already because a lot of people have been getting involved in their thoughts on what they think on Mike Ashley. So I'll read them in a second. I think I already know the answer to this question, Matt. So tomorrow, it gets announced Mike Ashley is now the owner of Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, I don't know if you want to divulge into what you told me kind of off air before we came into, but I don't think you'll be too enamoured by that, would you?
No, I would. I'll be honest, James, and I think people have kind of got this with coming off social media and all the rest of it over the past couple of weeks. I've been really worn down this year by this process and obviously trying to find and dig out information, etc. We only had 6-7 months of this, really. Like, to be honest, in terms of a proper protest effort, didn't we? We had we had a summer basically. We all had a summer of protesting. I don't know whether I could do 2 or 3 years of it. Like, I genuinely don't, and I don't know whether I'd want to go and watch the football club. I don't know whether I could bring myself to financially support that regime and prop it up again. I'm just, when you just sit and you just think, again, there is not much that could turn me off supporting Sheffield Wednesday and turning up to the game week in, week out. But I look at the situation that happened at Rangers, and I look at what fans did there, and I look at what's happened here over the last 6 or 7 months. If you can see a car crash coming, and you've got evidence to suggest for multiple different reasons why it's not the right thing,
don't jump in the car.
Correct. Yeah. Basically, don't do it. And I completely agreed with this, with when people were saying, oh, if it gets rid of the previous chairman, then yeah, I'll take it. I would have signed up for that. I'll hold my hands up and said I would have signed up for that. I wouldn't have been happy, but I would have signed up for that. Mm-hmm. Now, with a clean and fresh slate, I want him nowhere near my football club. And that's before you get into what he's like as a human being and what he's been charged with and the Fraser's takeover and all of the other business. People have been mentioning 0 hours contracts in sort of like the comments and bits and pieces like that. Again, that's business and that is how he's made his fortune. But when it comes to the football club, I wouldn't want this fan base to have 12 months of respite before it starts up again, and it's like this for another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's also talk as well that if he does take over, it won't be enough to satisfy all the creditors, which then means we get the 15-point deduction as well, which, that
should tell you straight off the gate. Like,
he's already making it hard for himself, I guess, before he's even started, if that is the case. And I suppose you think, what is the motive? You're not going to get off on a good footing with the fan base if by you coming in, they now want to, because we're then asking to put money into the club. I know he says, I don't want to give money to the previous owner. I think that's all bullshit, really, to be fair. Like, also, does it really matter who the money's going to? Like, I suppose he's not exactly an ethical man, is he, really? With the way that he operates, it doesn't seem like something that he would... It almost seems like a bit of an excuse, thinking that the fans would get on board with that by going, I don't want to give him any money either. Let's take the 15 points. If that means that idiot can't get any money, and stuff. But I think it would backfire because a lot of people have forgotten about him already. Everyone's whinging and moaning about Henrik Pedersen and me and you included, and talking about the players not trying when 8 weeks ago they weren't even getting paid. So it's mad how things can change quickly. I mean, also for context as well, just with this 15-point deduction, just put it into context in terms of what next season would look like. I didn't look at the results over the weekend, but kind of on Friday when I wrote this little piece and had a look. Plymouth, Blackpool, and Peterborough were all on 19 points and were 23rd, 22nd, and 21st. Minus 50, so 15 would be 34. 34 points gets you joint second. So 19 points. If you take off the 15, that means it would need to be on 34 points to just be level with the relegation zone. 34 points gets you joint second with Bradford. Cardiff are on 38. So basically, we'd need top 2 form next season at this stage to just be kind of trying to climb out of the relegation zone.
Bobbing along.
the 19th, 20th game of the season, just to be, we've got to hit the ground running with effectively a brand new squad, because the players that we've got now, it's going to look totally different next season. So I know Leeds got into the top 6 with a 15-point deduction when that happened to them in the Ken Bates era. They actually had a team, do you know what I mean, that they could actually start the season with. We've got absolutely nothing,
Because that is the thing that you've just mentioned there, James, and just to wheel this back around to Mike Ashley, Newcastle had 2 Premier League squads. It wasn't down to the managers in terms of, and the playing staff as to why the football club was relegated. It was down to the off-field model, and it happened twice. Now, I know people will be going, you're relegated from the Premier League, that don't make a big deal. Newcastle had never been relegated from the Premier League until Mike Ashley stepped foot in there. Mike Ashley also said in 2008, I'll sell the football club. Fans don't want me anymore. I'm selling it. Mike Ashley stayed until, 2021, 2022?
Yeah.
He stopped going to games. He stopped engaging with fans. He was charging extortionate season ticket price. All of this sound familiar? Again, it is the previous... I'm just looking at it, James, and I'm just dealing with the stuff that is in front of me and the information, because I don't know what he'd do at Sheffield Wednesday, and I'm more than happy to be proved wrong on this.
Yeah.
But I know you were going to come on to ask this question. I'll ask it to you, James. With that 15-point deduction and all of those facts that you've just read out there, you need top 2 form. Currently, we've got, what was it we were talking about before? 12 professional players before tomorrow. And we're about to launch into an extra time where we go, he can go. You need effectively a squad of 20 building here.
Yeah.
Do you honestly think that is going to happen with all of those facts and the information that's there? That's before you dive into Newcastle spent 140 million when they went down to the Championship. Well, they did, but they also sold 230 million pounds worth of players. So again, Mike Ashley came out in profit. So it is. Do you know what I mean?
He's not spent anything.
Got it. You are going to have to spend an awful lot of money.
Yeah, we could probably muster up maybe, I don't know, £10 million worth of player sales, maybe, if we're lucky. It's not going to go very far. I know it's League One. And the other thing, I kind of caveat what you were saying, about the money going back into his previous business. He hasn't got a Sports Direct, to put that into, I guess. No. So it depends on where. I don't know if he'd be able to do anything like that. He hid that quite well. I don't know if he's got that mechanism to do that or not. I've not looked deeply into it.
But you're right though, James, and that's because we as a fan base were also focused on where's the money coming from, not where's the money going. Because I think there are some wonderfully financially literate people at the Trust. I bet given some time, now that the pressure's off, those members at the Trust, sooner or later, would uncover where that money from Sheffield Wednesday has gone and actually what the club was used for. Because my own hunch is that actually Sheffield Wednesday was a middle ground where money was filtered in, cleaned, and then shipped out. For what? I don't know. And I'm by no means suggesting that it was for anything illegal or anything like that. But there was money going into the club in droves year on year from the fan base. And actually, we never saw any of that money. The chairman himself came out and said, I am losing £9 million a year, which would suggest he was putting an awful lot of money in as well.
Yeah. Well, the fact that he needed to wait for money to come back, just says to you there that his money's gone out to then come back. I have no idea. Yeah, it's. I'm just glad that we're out of that regime. I said I'd come to some comments. I will read some of them out. Apologies if I don't read yours. Kieran says people are slating him, but he doesn't buy things blind. He knows what he needs to do, and he knows off the bat he's going to need to invest. Big Rev says from a commercial and retail perspective, good sense. John says, I'd take Mike Ashley. He knows how to run a business. It's a forward step after our previous owner. I just want to preface this by this was all kind of before you've mentioned what you say. The temperature might change. It might not. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. No one's opinion is wrong. I just want to stress that as well. That's the beauty of football, of course. Yeah. You can agree, disagree. You might think Matt's talking a load of bollocks, which sure. I talk a lot of bollocks on a regular basis, so there's nothing different there. Matt says, I hope you're not going down the tick box road exercise. Steve said, I guess there's better potential owners out there, but there's definitely going to be a lot worse than Ashley as well. That's kind of where I'm in it, like with the grass is,
My question is, James,
greener.
who? Give me an example of someone who is worse. Because I would argue, don't get me wrong, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination suggesting that our previous owner was any good. He was absolutely appalling, and me and you spoke about this for over a year, and I know previous co-hosts who you've had on spoke about how horrendous he was also. Everything is still controlled by the football club. There are no deals that have shipped off our merchandising to this. There are no deals which mean that we owe, how much do we owe to the previous chairman? What is it, like 10, 15 million quid?
Yeah, under the administration thing, that's the minimum, yeah.
And that's what I mean. In the grand scheme of things, it's an awful lot of money. But in the grand scheme of things, when you could be on the hook for another 4 years under a retail deal where you only see 40p of every £10 spent, that is a small sum of money to actually, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Big Rev says, who knows, he may have learnt from his mistakes at the Toon, who knows? Daniel says, question would be, get the same abuses in at Newcastle, probably not after what we had under the Golden Elephant Man. Yeah, that is the point of, is it going to be any worse than what we previously had? Richard says, Ashley makes successful businesses from failures. That's what we need. Newcastle fans didn't like him because he wouldn't splash hundreds of millions of pounds on mediocre players.
Richard, I mean this with all due respect, please go and have a look at the other reasons as to why. We've mentioned a club legend here, David Hirst. They have one called Alan Shearer. Alan Shearer had a bar named after him. Mike Ashley fell out with him and renamed that bar. It's Mike Ashley's way or the highway, and if you're in his way, that's it. Sorry, James.
It's all right. Mark Pittsmore Owl says he's not my first choice, but we're a League One club. Let's see. It's got to be made affordable for all. Great channel, boys, as always. Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure. Alex says no, he would run us on the cheap in League One. Also, would he have a plan? I'd like to think he'd have a plan. I'm going to come on to something like that in a second, actually, with the. We'll talk about James Board in a second, and I've come on to kind of like having a plan and stuff like that as well. Bobby says Rangers are a League One club as well. Steve says, "Ooh, football friends." Obviously, in relation to when you were saying how putting friends into football jobs at Rangers. And Kieran also says, "I am absolutely fucking horrified of this man ever owning our club." Barry says, "The trust will police it." I'll come on to that in a minute. Barry, have you been reading my notes, Barry? But yeah, more comments as well. I'll be here all week if I was reading them all out. Let's come on to James Board then. Now, this one surfaced earlier on today, so we haven't had much time to kind of mull this one over. For those that don't know who James Board is, I have taken this from the article written in the Star by Alex Miller. He says Board's name may be familiar to Sheffield football followers in that he's acted as a leading consultant on recruitment deals for COH Sports, who are the owners of our dear friends down the road, having been brought into decision-making process at the Lane by United part owner Joe Russo. It also goes on to say Tottenham Hotspur fan Board has an AI-led football analytics business, Short Circuit Science, and holds existing stakes in Scottish club Dunfermline Athletic, Spanish side Cordoba CF, and Bulgarian club Septemvri Sofia. It's also been linked with interest in acquiring Derby County. This Board is said to divide the bulk of his time between Las Vegas and London. I think he also made his money in poker as well. I was reading a bit that Revs put in the Discord chat. There was a name in there that did perk up my interest. Tony Bloom.
What I would give for Tony Bloom. What I would give.
I suppose James Board could be Tony Bloom on Wish.com. Maybe. I hope he isn't. If he does take over, but have you done a little bit more digging into this one at all? He doesn't look like Sheffield United fans like him at all, maybe.
No, but that's not a mark of anything. They're like Chris Wilder.
They didn't like Max Lowe, and he seems to be all right. So they don't know anything about football over there.
My question is, I suppose, for the other side of the city and anybody who does get their head pecked off at work over the next week or so, while nobody's doing anything like next week. Like, let's be honest. Is to what level did he have involvement? Because if it is suggesting players and actually all of his suggestions were completely taken up, I don't actually think the players are the issue there. And I've said this, that in isolation, the players that have been signed at Sheffield 2 are actually good Championship players. Mark McGuinness, Tanganga, Tahith Chong. Who else? Danny Ings, Patrick Bamford. There's a list of players that they have signed not only over the course of this summer who actually in isolation are not bad players. What happened was the coach that they brought in wasn't the right manager. That happens. That happens at lots of football clubs. And then what they've done is gone back to their ex. Now, what I would say about their ex is the way in which that Chris Wilder runs any football club is he likes to have all sorts of control over a football club. And it's a very traditional or old school way of thinking and doing things. Actually, modern football runs where you have a director of football, head of recruitment, the football club has an identity and a playing style, and the recruitment team and the director of football go out and sign players to match that.
Well, it was a clean slate at Sheffield Wednesday, didn't it, really? We don't have any of that. It's literally just start, and there's hardly anyone there. There's no kind of previous regime or anything like that. We just literally it's the nicest sense. We're just treading water or attempting to tread water at the moment. And this season is just, as most people already know, it's a write-off, and we're just purely getting to the end of the season.
I'd just suggest that, again, I understand why Sheffield United fans won't like him and will think that he's a bit of a joke and etc. But my question would be, what's his level of involvement? Do you know what his level of... Because if he's just an advisor, that could be on deals. Like, that doesn't necessarily be like, oh, I'm advising you on players to go and sign. Now, you'd suggest from an analytics business that, he probably has recommended those. would you argue, aside from the lad that Chris Wilder named and shamed, I think in his last press conference as Sheffield United manager, who was a bloke who he'd never heard of from somewhere, would you argue that the majority of their business was bad business over the summer? Me personally, I wouldn't. I wouldn't argue that it's that. I would argue the fact that they went out and recruited a poor manager. That's by the by. They've then gone back and appointed their old manager because they couldn't fight. They were basically trying to appease fans. That's why they've gone and done that. I don't know, James. With him, I don't know enough about it. I don't know enough about him to make any sort of a conclusion.
Yeah, that's it on me, really. It come at us this afternoon, and I had much time to kind of look into it, to be honest. I mean, the only thing I would say when you look at kind of signings and stuff like that, I don't know whether them that you mentioned were his signings, because I think that AI model was those players that we have no idea who are from. I think 2 were signed from the same team, and I'm not being funny. If you're using AI, there are a plethora of football clubs all over the world that you can choose from, and for AI to pick 2 from the same club sounds a little bit fishy for me. And I just look and go, we signed, Olaf Kabacki from the Polish second tier, which would potentially be one of these AI signings, and look how that's worked for us. I'm all for kind of new ideas and fresh ideas, and being the trailblazers for some new thing that kind of revolutionises football. But I don't know if the shoe's on the other foot and we're signed. I mean, I'm just looking at Eji Ukake from Butev Plovdiv, and then Mihail Polondokov from Septemvri Sofia. Oh, that's a funny club name. That might be his club.
My question here, James, I suppose, is, and this is difficult because we're using other clubs as an example here. Let's say you, rather than having that search as wide as it clearly is under that model, and you actually narrow it down to leagues that replicate the pace and play styles that you see in the Championship and you see in League One, that's effectively what Sunderland did. And for Sunderland, they went out and signed, I know people talk about Trey Hume and etc. and Joe Bellingham and blah, blah, blah. But they also have signed 40 other dog shit players who you've never heard of. And it takes 2 of them to hit before you go up. Yeah,
that is the difference, isn't it? This model is throwing shit at the wall and hoping that some of it sticks.
Correct.
And it's like how we've spoke about this before on a previous pod where we're talking about, you sign 10, you sell someone for 10 million and then you spend that 10 million on 10 £1 million players. Yeah. And then you're hoping that one is going to be an absolute superstar, 3 or 4 will be sold for half decent money, and the rest you might make your money back on some, and then you might have 3 or 4 that just get released, and you lose the £1 million that you've spent. I suppose it comes back to kind of Sheffield Wednesday are really shit at spending money, but if we've only spent money on 2 or 3 players, and that's all, all 3 haven't worked. Yeah, it's a shit turnover, but it's only 3 players. We haven't spent money on 40 players and all 40 have been shit. It's just a small sample size. If you roll the dice 3 times or flip a coin, chances are you could get 3 heads in a row. It's not uncommon. But if you flip 40 coins, it'll be a long time until you get 40 in a row of the same one. The point I'm trying to make, you have to. I suppose you need money in order to do that, and I guess these next people that are coming in. I mean, I don't know how much money James Board has got. I'm guessing it's not just going to be him. I'm guessing he's going to be part of some sort of consortium and things like that. But yeah, it's a bit of a left field one that's come out. Chris has asked, no discussion about tomorrow's game. No, Chris. It's the short answer.
Playing
on that
Derby.
Derby, they're bringing a lot of fans. We've got no players.
They'll also chant about us dying like we've done at Derby as well. This is the first club that we've played, aside from our dearly beloved neighbours, who really didn't want to see us survive. But not all the fans, I hasten to add, but this lot, they will 100%. We're going to have a party. That you will hear that tomorrow.
Yeah, it's funny that actually, 'cause Chris, who I spoke to from the Derby podcast, he was saying how, there was obviously a video going around that we sang that but again, it was probably about 10 lads that sang it. It wasn't the whole of Hillsborough ringing around when they came to us. But anyway, I just wanted to make this point. Whoever the owner is going to be, whether it's James Board, whether it's Mike Ashley, whether it's McAvoy, whoever it may be, might be someone we've never even heard of. Who knows? One thing I want to say, I think it's a great opportunity for the trust. I don't want to say step up, because I think they have done already in the past, but I think it's the chance to get the new owners, whoever they are, to kind of, what's the word, like sign a mandate or agree to certain set criteria that the club kind of has to adhere to. Now, there won't be any like penalties, I guess, if they don't. But it's something that we can hold the new owners to be accountable for. And I don't know what they could be. I would probably guess it would things such as, I don't know, like a transparency on, I don't know, expenditure or something like that. So we were talking earlier about knowing where the money's going, or maybe a cap on season ticket sales, or season tickets won't be on sale before a certain date, or it could be a multitude of different things, and I'm sure there might be subcategories in that as well. Us kind of painting out what a Sheffield Wednesday Football Club will hopefully look like to moving forward. It won't be like spending X amount of money or getting to the Premier League in 5 years or whatever. Just other things that need to be done that we've been whinging and moaning about and complaining about under our previous owner. And it's just that if they're not done, then the owner owners can be held accountable. And previously we were protesting and we were complaining about the previous owner, but I felt like initially it was like a scattergun approach. Someone was pissed off about the prices of the tickets. Someone else was annoyed about the players on the pitch. Someone else was about the shirt prices or whatever it may be. And everyone was all over the shop. And it took a while for everyone to kind of come together under one umbrella to move forward. Whereas you'd kind of know, well, wait a minute, they said they were going to do this, and they've just not done it. All right, well, now we can hold them to account for that and question them on it, and actually have that, hopefully we've got that dialogue between them again. And it was only something I've kind of popped in there later on when I was doing the notes, but I think it's certainly something that would be highly beneficial anyway.
I agree with you, James, and I think this is something that the original supporters panel was set up to do. Like, it was set up to do it. However, I think the longer that process played out, I think fan groups became increasingly disenfranchised with it, and there were pockets of that. The reason why I would suggest that the Supporters Trust are the right group to perhaps, I'm not saying lead this, but actually take the wheel in terms of this, is because they do have now a track record of organising large-scale fan protests at this football club. They also have a large membership now, post obviously the previous owner's reign. I think that a fan engagement panel is good if a fan engagement panel is actually listened to and things are actioned from it. I think it's also useful for those who are on a fan engagement panel to represent a wide variety of different fan stakeholders, which I will say 100%. The previous fan engagement board on paper did that 100%. The difficulty is always going to come with getting an owner and a board to agree that this is something that they are willing to do. And that is a very, very fine balancing act to get right. I think by the time that all of this had properly kicked into gear and people were actually feeling, I don't know what to do, we were so far down the road with the previous owner that actually that was never going to happen through the historical channels of a fan engagement panel. And that's not for lack of trying from the people who were in those meetings, because again, anybody who is willing to sit through 6.5 hours of that shite, I take my hat off to you. Like, it's an unbelievable effort. And now all of the dust has settled and all of the emotion has gone from it. The supporters groups who were on that, I can't begin to imagine the level of knowledge that they had about certain aspects of the way the football club was being run, but as en masse as a fan base, we probably just weren't ready to hear it. And that's really, really sad. Whereas now, I think the more vocal fan groups towards the previous owner, the ones who did speak up, the ones who have, really stuck their neck out and tried to challenge, now would be listened to and taken seriously. And there is no perfect time for it. I just hope they're not too worn down, because I personally am very grateful for the work that those fan engagement panels and the supporters groups did to try and hold the previous owner to account.
It's a great point there that there could be a lot of PTSD for a lot of people,
agreed.
thinking that, you hear like a fan engagement and the first one will come out and everyone will flock to it and read it and you'll go, it's not as juicy as what I've like because I mean it's nice as well.
Safe standings coming in.
Yeah, but like previously nobody read it because we didn't really need to read it, like unless you were. I mean this like the wider fan base, like they were making a change, but you just turn up to the game and you go, oh, they've done that. Like that could have been the chairman's decision. That could have been someone at the club's decision. That could have been a fellow fan's decision. And and I hope it gets celebrated if it is a fan's decision that's been implemented and stuff. But like we weren't. You just went to the match. You watched the football, and you're just happy that things were better, if indeed they were or weren't. And it should get to that point really. Like it shouldn't be. We shouldn't be talking about it on social media about, when are the minutes out? Oh my God, I want to read it. Oh my God, it should just be in the background working away, and should just be ever grateful of them people doing that thing. Right, let's come to a little bit of transfer chat. Just going to bring this comment up here from Zane. Says that whatever happens, I just pray for better times ahead. And Big Rev says, like I said on Discord, I'll support whoever until they cross the fan base. And I do think that as well. Like we do need to get behind whoever it is that becomes the owner. There's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, around billionaires and the Forbes top 10 has been just read out basically, and a lot of us, including myself, has got very excited, and I think this past week or two has probably brought me down to earth a little bit and tempered my expectations somewhat. And I've just got a funny feeling that it's going to be announced, and it's just going to be like a wet fart. It's just going to be like.
The thing is, James, aside from one of the owners that we've discussed here, and that's me. I'm aware that that's not everybody. I having launched into a tirade for about 10 minutes about Mike Ashley, I would still give him 12 months and say, right, what is the evidence on paper at Sheffield Wednesday? What am I dealing with in terms of the facts here? And it's the same for anybody who is, with all sincerity, James, with anybody who is lucky enough to get the opportunity to do something really special here. Because yes, it's going to cost whoever it is, it's going to cost them a lot of money. There's no ifs or bones about it. But it's an opportunity to do something really, really special here. And there is an opportunity, no matter who it is, to make a real, serious amount of coin. You can go about it in a variety of different ways, and you can go about it ethically in a variety of different ways. But I, as an individual, would 100%, I would sit there, and for the first 12, 18 months, I won't cast an opinion on something unless it's totally egregious. Because I just don't have enough of a bank of evidence. And going to your point about it, being released and it being a letdown, even if it was a multi-billionaire and they're the best owners in football, you're not going to know that until 12 months in. You're just not. So actually, let's again hold fire, sit back, and then when things do happen, make a note of them and make sure that we're holding people to account. Yeah,
true. Let's talk about this player then quickly. We've been linked with. This lad, obviously transfer window isn't open until a couple of weeks, until the January window's open. We still don't know what the restrictions on us are going to be. But Peter O'Rourke has put something out to say that we're linked with Reece Welch from Everton. Has been in the Everton setup since the age of 11, according to his, the Bible, which is Wikipedia, which we all know is 100% the truth. 22-year-old centre-back, 6'6", which I thought when I was reading that, I thought that was tall until I went to the basketball earlier.
Was it Shark Tank earlier?
Well, no, there was a lad who was 6'11", so he's actually pretty.
Christ.
He's actually pretty small. From people
I'm 6'3", and I think 6'11" is fucking massive.
It was fucking massive as well, by the way. Jolly green giant. I don't think he had to jump to do a slam dunk, to be fair. But anyway, Reece has been on loan at Forest Green in the 23-24 season. He was recalled. He was also on loan at the Belgian side Dienza. That was another season-long loan, but that was cut short when the club dissolved. So that was
That went well.
That one went very well, that one. He's been capped at under-16 level, right up to under-20s for England youth. He's been an unused sub twice this season for Everton. And apparently Championship loan is the next ideal move for his development, according to some. What do you make to that one?
At 22, he should be playing. Yeah, sorry, James. This is when we were talking about wet farts. At 22, he should be playing regular first team football for somebody. I'd rather us develop our own players. We are flush with centre back options in our youth setup. Joe Emery, Cole McGee, to name two. If he was a centre mid, a winger, a forward, fine. But at 22, for me, as a centre half, he's had one loan at Forest Green where he was recalled. He's had another loan. This isn't through a fault of his own or the player. I would be very excited about this if it were a summer move or kind of a potential permanent transfer or something like that. I'd much rather, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I'd much rather see Gabe Otigbayo get more game time than him because he's our player. And I'd rather us try and develop our players. Yeah. For somebody like Harry Amass at 18 years old, that works. For someone like, previously been linked with Jaden Heskey, 100% works. At 22 years old, in modern football, you should be playing professional football. You shouldn't be playing in youth setups. You should actually know what you are. It's why, say for argument's sake, Rio Shipston, this is nothing against Rio Shipston, by the way. Rio Shipston is not going to make the grade at Sheffield Wednesday. We know that. We know that now. Everybody is comfortable with that now. Alex Hunt, we knew, wasn't going to make the grade at Sheffield Wednesday. Alex Hunt has gone on to have a career in football, which is great for him. I just look at this here and think, if it's the summer, brilliant. Absolutely wonderful. Get him in. Have him in the setup. He can fight for his place. Right now, not for me, personally.
I do agree. Yeah, like permanent move, great. If it's a loan, yeah. But I suppose really, we just want bodies through the door. And I suppose as well, if we are looking at signings like this, who we don't really, signing who we don't really know anything of, coming in. At least if it was someone like Cooper, for example, that we brought in, we know he's got a wealth of experience, and you can add that to the what is he going to be bring? The experience. Whereas this one, it's like, you look at it and go, what is? I don't know nothing about him, but just purely looking at, like you said, his age and stuff. Yeah. I mean, look, 6'6", he might make us a little bit better in the air from set pieces. He might be able to defend set pieces.
He still won't be able to defend a fucking corner. He'll have not conceded a goal all season in Everton's youth setup from a fucking set piece. He'll come in, lose his man, and it'll be 1-0 down.
We'll train that into him. I remember when Joos van Aken, I thought he was a right baller when he first started. Julian Borner, he was like a rock when he started in the first couple of games. We slowly train that into him, and we can make him, we can train that, train that out of him, quite quickly.
You're tracking your man. What are you doing?
Don't do that here, lad. We don't do that. That's not what you do.
See that ball? Follow that. What about the man who I'm supposed to be marking? No. Follow the ball.
We do man-to-ball marking over here at Sheffield 6, I'll have you know.
Jesus.
Anyway, right, let's wrap it up, because we're 2 minutes 20 over our allotted 90 minutes. Well, in overtime now. I've gone all American on you.
You have.
Let's wrap it up. Let's jump over to Patreon. Patreon.com/WTRD pod. We're going to be doing keep, sell or release. We're going to be going through the whole squad. And, I say whole squad, all the professionals anyway. All 12. So it's only be a 10-minute episode, this one. So it won't be too long. But no, we're going to do that and talk about all that good stuff. Wrap things up. Thank you very much for listening. Do really appreciate it, as always. If it's the first time that you've come across us, do make sure you like and subscribe. It always helps us out tremendously. We'll be there tomorrow at Hillsborough. Hopefully we're going to be not freezing to death, because it is pretty cold out there, and hopefully we've got something to shout and scream about as well. So, no, thank you very much, and we'll see you all next time.